Shabbos Daf Ayin Tes. When it comes to hide, leather, the shear is the size of a kameya in order to be over haitzah. From going from one domain to another domain, you have to take out the size of an emulet. Not only that, says Rav Nachman, this size of an emulet applies to everything. Whether this piece of hide is tanned, untanned, you want to tan it, you don't want to tan it. Not only that, if you're tanning hide, what's the shear to be chai for tanning? The size of an emulet, of a kameya. Similarly, we say the same thing by spinning. The Malakas of milaben, to clean the wool, minapetz, to untangle, tzeveh, to dye, and toivet, to spin, are all the same exact shear, even though some of them are before the finished product, some of them are after. The shear is the same. Kisit kafel. This is a sit from finger to finger, times 2. Anytime you find the inconsistency in the shiurim, that the shear is a lot larger before the finished product versus after the finished product, that is because people don't want to burden themselves with a small shear. They'll only take care of that melacha when there's a larger shear. For instance, 3 different examples the Gemara brings. When it comes to herbs, tzivea dyes, before you cook the herbs, the shear is much larger. It's the size of a walnut, enough to dye a full svacha, a woman's cap. But once it's cooked, then the size is dugma li'ira. A dugma is a sample cloth that vendors will show different colors. Li'ira, the size that you would put on the device that holds the Erev string that goes through the chassis. The end has a small piece of fabric that keeps the thread from unraveling. It's a smaller piece, much smaller than a svacha. And then again, that's because people don't want to bother with undone products, so therefore the uncooked samamanim have a much larger shear. When it comes to seeds, unplanted seeds, the shear is much greater than planted seeds. Unplanted seeds are either, according to Tanakama, enough to have a gregaris, slightly less than a gregaris. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's 5 seeds. But once they're planted, it's 1 seed for a leek or a cabbage, according to Rabbi Akiva. Again, people don't want to be matriach themselves with 1 seed unless it's planted. When it comes to wastewater, we say that wastewater, the shear is a revius in order to knead clay. But once the clay is kneaded, then the shear is much smaller. It's the size of pikur. There are 3 levels, or 3 stages, that is, when you make hide, when you tan hide. And they involve salt, flour, and gallnuts. If there's only salt, that's called chipa, and the shear of that piece of hide is bikameya. If there's salt and flour added, but no gallnuts, that's called diftera. The shear of that is to write the main essential parts of a get, hariyat mugureshes, mutaris l'chal adam, and the name of the person. If there's no salt or flour or gallnuts, that's called matzah. It's plain, like matzah. And that the size is in order to protect a weight. That's a much larger shear than a kameya, and that's because it's moist and you cannot tan it. The tumah of medris, when a zav nida, sit or stand on a piece of fabric, leather, as we had the other day, maybe a week ago or so, is 3x3 tefachim for a piece of cloth, 4x4 tefachim for a sack, 5x5 for a piece of leather. All of a sudden now it's 5x5 tefachim for leather, and not the size of a kameya. And the answer is because we're dealing with something that's cooked and really hard. The only thing you can produce from this leather are tables and things like that. We said in the Mishnah that klaf is enough, the shear for klaf is enough to write the smallest parish in the tefillin, which is Shema. And the Brisa says, duchsustus is enough to write a mezuzah. What's duchsustus? Well, the parchment comes in something called gvil. If you separate the two, you have the part closer to the flesh of the animal is called duchsustus, and the part closer to the hair of the animal is called klaf, according to Tosfos. And according to Tosfos, we write on the part that's further away, on the opposite side of the hair and the opposite side of the flesh. Tefillin are only written on klaf. Mezuzah, the maskan of the Gemara, is you can write it on klaf, but also on duchsustus. And a Sefer Torah, you can write it on klaf duchsustus and on gvil when they're still connected. duchsustos, which is not roi for tefillin, therefore it needs a larger shear, the size of a mezuzah. Sometimes you could call the parsha of tefillin by the name of mezuzah. For instance, the halacha is that if a tefillin has the ritzua, you shouldn't touch it. That's one of the 18 enactments of Beis Shammai. It's metame the yadayim, it's metame the hands for truma. Ritzua by itself, not. Reb Shimon says you have to touch the actual backs of the tefillin. Reb Zaki says you have to touch the actual mezuzah of the tefillin, meaning the parsha of the tefillin. Rav says a statement. Duchsustus is like klaf. Maskar of the Gemara, what he meant to say is opposite of what we would think. That klaf is like duchsustus. In other words, just like a mezuzah can be written on duchsustus, it can also be written on klaf. The halacha is that a sefer Torah and tefillin that you're about to put in the shemas, you cannot cut out the parsha of a mezuzah and use it as a mezuzah. Because malim b'kodesh v'lo meridin, you don't go downwards in kedusha, you go upwards. We have to be talking about that the tefillin were written in a klaf, and therefore you could write the mezuzah, even a mezuzah, on klaf according to Rav Meir, because Rav Meir holds that you could write a mezuzah on klaf since it's better for the mezuzah, it'll last longer, it's better protected like that. Have a wonderful day.